Thanks for coming, everybody. Just a summary off the top. Obviously, another year with the team falling short of the playoffs, and I think that's obviously an immediate measure. We're here today, and there are 16 teams that are competing to try to win the Stanley Cup, and as we talked about previously, that's really our goal is to build the team back to being a contender for the Stanley Cup. It's not trying to find a way to just sneak into the playoffs. It's trying to find a way to arrive back there and then remain there in contention. And we continue committed to our plan and program to return us there as urgently as possible. I thought that the team this past year responded better after the trade deadline, and I would even go back to further to after the trade of Marcus and Drew at the end of January, early February, than we did the prior year with Jake, which was I think a positive thing. But I don't want the results at the end of the year, which were better this season than last, from that point on to distract from the fact that we're still finished this year well out of it, and 11 points out of it, and well below the threshold of say 95 points that we need to get to. So that's what our focus is, and here it's maintaining our commitment to the plan that we've set out in these sessions a number of times, which is returning the team to contending as urgently as possible. And that's through continue to acquire assets that can help us. We've acquired a lot of draft capital, as everybody knows. Continue to acquire prospects, some of whom you've seen here in the later stretch of the season, and continue to then use those in combination. That if there are players that come available, that are young players that are going to be in their key performing and prime years when the team is back in contention, can they help us get there, and then can they perform at that level all the way through? Not looking to acquire players in their early 30s and sign long term and have those on our books. When it comes to the team itself, I think and I'm talking only about the potential of the group, the forward group, and the goaltending group, I feel are in a good spot. We have to continue to improve them. When I say the potential, I mean the competition that will be there come the fall and training camp at both positions. I think in net, we've got the two guys who are under contract who finished the year here, and Tristan and Alex Nedeljkovic, and then the two younger guys who've had excellent years in the minors, Joel Blomqvist and Sergei Murashov. Philip Larson has had a good year. He's out injured now. We'll see where that takes him. And Taylor Gauthier again had a strong year once he returned from injury. So the goaltending room is one that I think has good depth, and it'll be a robust competition coming to camp. And the message that we've given to the two NHL goalies departing is that they've been through this in their career, and they're going to be competing for their spots in camp. The two younger guys, they are still in competition. So Sergei is leading Wheeling in the playoffs, and Joel will start with Wilkes on Wednesday against Lehigh Valley. So those are two massive developmental opportunities for the two of them, and they're very important development opportunities for us to continue to watch them. The forward group, as you've all seen, some of the guys came up here at the end of the year and I thought performed well. They have a long way to go. We'll continue to push them there, and we need to continue to add to that on the higher end through drafting and different trade opportunities that come up. The defense group is an area of major concern at the NHL level, and really with our prospect pool. We've got a few guys in the prospect pool that have good potential. Some of whom have been up here and played, Owen Pickering, Jack St. Ivany. But the other parts of those groups, or some of them are filtering into Wheeling now, and Finn Harding and Chase Pytilla, but the others are ways away. And it's an area of major focus for us that we're going to need to improve upon to return our team to contention. So what you'll expect from us in the summer is that the plan that we've set out in this room and publicly and backed it up with our actions, we're going to continue down that path. I know that we have a lot of assets we could use. We have a lot of cap space we could use. We will use it, as I said, if there are opportunities to bring in players that can be a part of returning the team to contention and then maintaining their level all the way through their contracts once in contention. And that is the plan, and look forward to executing it starting today all the way through to the draft and free agency and development camp and into next season. And on that note, I will turn it over to any questions that the room may have.
Okay, we'll start with Taylor. Wait for me to give you some sort of acknowledgement that I saw your hand up. Go ahead.
Kyle, you keep talking about wanting to get the team to contention as urgently as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a sense of that kind of timeline? Like, is next season a real possibility, and what would it take to get there?
Well, next season would be, it would be a tremendous accomplishment for the players. But I mean, I think if you look at the history of these things, to go from where we're at now to all the way back to legitimate contention, and I don't equate just getting into the playoffs with being a contender. I think we can, various things happen. But you can look at some of the games that have transpired already, and we'll have the tail once the playoffs are done. That those two things are not the same. So our focus is, I think if you ask the fan base or even the folks in the room that have followed it long enough, if it was the decision between just get back to the playoffs once next year or make the moves that are going to set us up to contend in the long run, and what the city and the fan base has been used to, they would probably choose the latter, and that's my focus every day. So when I say as urgently as possible, I try not to put a timeline on it because I don't want this to be a perpetual and evergreen conference. We come in and we say, we're just a year or two or so away. We're pushing because I think that's what the organization here is used to, what the fans want. We just have to stick to a very concise plan and then execute our butts off. That's for sure.
Stefan,
Kyle, you mentioned the goaltending there. First off, do you expect Alex and Tristan to definitely be part of the group that comes to camp here in September?
As of this moment, they're both under contract, and I fully expect that, yes.
Just what do you make of, the struggles that group at the NHL level at least had this year? Obviously, as you mentioned, the defense could have been a little stiffer this year, but just what do you make of how that group performed this year? What maybe needs to be better there in that area?
Well, I think just flat out the performance needs to be better. You've touched on a point, which is, if you look at every metric of measuring performance, we also conceded a lot defensively in terms of what was expected to be given up, but we also allowed more than expected. So that's a really poor combination, and I think both need to be rectified. And there was stretches. I think I was especially proud of how Tristan handled the end of the year. Ned as well. Like, Ned didn't play a whole lot down the stretch. In the 3 games he played, he gave us a chance in all 3, won 2 of them. And Tristan, it was, it's not easy to go through what he went through, and I was the one delivering those messages to him, right? So, for him to come in at the end, I thought he played well. Now he needs to stack it because there's going to be a different pressure at the beginning of the year again that I think you all know. Can he take what he's done here and then continue to stack that going into next year and double that pressure with the fact that there's 2 young guys that are going to be pushing, and that was a message given to Tristan and Ned as well. So this isn't going to come as any surprise. Like, those guys are going to be, they're going to be given every opportunity to win jobs as well.
Rob in the back right.
Kyle, I have 2. Of the prospects you have, some of whom we saw in bits this year,
Yeah.
but also, if you could include in this group the people that are at the AHL performing, who do you anticipate might have an opportunity to be part of the NHL group going into camp? And do you see anybody in that group that might be a fit for Malkin? It seems like this year he sort of had roving wingers. I'm wondering if any of those younger players you might see as a way to sort of help his game return.
You're being kind with roving because it was a rotating cast of characters for Gino, and I think that's hard. I mean, I know he's had that a lot in his time here. And he's a very different player than Sid, where Sid seems to, he gets locked in and then they roll and they maintain an elite level of performance. Gino seems to, and even going back before I got here, it was always different guys could come and go with him and it wouldn't really faze him. And I think that's a real testament to Gino and what he's about. He's able to find a way to make it work. I think as he continues to age, we have to do a better job of making the support more consistent. And so I think at the end of the year, just use that as a preview with when Billy was with him for a stretch, and he went up with Sid, and then moved Rax back down. That'll be a coaching decision at the end, but it is an area where, when we traded for Tommy Novak, Tommy came in, he was with Gino to start. Through those games, it was 2 games and or a game and a half or so. But that was sort of the intention. We'll see that in camp, and then we were able to move Raquel back down there. If those guys are able to maintain their performance, and they're going to have ups and downs as young players, they still need to continue to improve on execution, habits, conditioning, strength, all those different items. But trying to stabilize that, I think, would only benefit the team. When it comes to other younger guys that I think you know, it's hard to predict which guys will break camp. I think the guys we expect to make a push are, you know, obviously Jack St. Ivan, he finished the year on, he started this year, he was, you know, then he had, you know, ill-timed injury at the end when he probably could have come up. We would expect Jack to push for sure. Owen Pickering, I mean, you know, he's got to have a real strong playoff here for Wilkes-Barre, and he's got to have a great summer, and he's got to come in and we can't have him, same as when we had him go down, settle into a 12, 13 minute a night role. He needs to come in and push his way into 17, 18, 19, 20 minutes and earn that. And then, you know, Harrison Brunick's down there again right now playing very well. That's on the back end, and it'll be wide open for the guys. Otherwise, we need to probably build up the depth and address the position in general. Rob, up front, I think mostly everybody, because of the injury situation that we had, everybody that had a chance would be the same people again in camp. But I would add Tristan Brose to that as well. He had a very strong start to the year. Then he had a really tough case of mono, and then we could have probably brought him up last week. I just didn't think that those types of games should be his first recalls into the NHL. You know, notably the game on Thursday night. We're playing a team that's dressing 14 forwards and 4D, or you know, best to have him stay down in Wilkes and come up next year if he can earn it with a legitimate opportunity.
Jeff on the left.
Kyle, what can be learned about Washington's season, and could any of what they've done be implemented here to help that process?
Yeah, Jeff, I think if I didn't reference Washington, this would break a streak of 7 or 8 of these press conferences where I haven't. I just think that there are a number of teams in the league that, you know, there's 2 paths to go down. You can go into the mass tear down, rebuild, and hope you get lucky with the lottery and hope that, you know, all this happens, but you can hope in one hand and shit in the other, and see which one fills up first. So to me, what they've done, like the thing about Washington, I think if you really look at it, is they also drafted well while they were contending. So if you look at the roster now, it's populated with their own, you know, their own younger guys that are in their early 20s. They've got, you know, obviously Ovechkin, Tom Wilson, John Carlson, and others that have come in and that have been there, and so they set the standard. We have that here with our own high-end guys. It's the area, the difference that I see between the teams, if we're trying to learn anything, is in that middle range where it's, you know, we don't have Martin Fehervary and Connor McMichael yet. You know, we're trying to rapidly get to that point, and you know, the 2 guys that I think came up and showed the most promise at the end were guys that weren't here. You know, one wasn't here 10 months ago, the other wasn't here 15 months ago, and so we're trying to use our assets to get us there and push us there. That's where we lack. So I think that's what we can learn. The other part is, you know, they went into mass, you know, acquiring assets mode, and then they used the assets to add players that they felt complemented. They have to do one thing, we have to do 2, which is fill that, you know, lack of the young 22, 23, 24, 25-year-old NHL player, and then also continue to build out our assets to, you know, use them to acquire and trade. And they also, if you look at their team, they've drafted extremely well. You look at the group that's there, and then you look at the group even below, it's, you know, there are other guys that are coming for them yet. So they're going to be a bear for us to deal with. They're extraordinarily well coached. I know Spencer, we work together in Toronto, and they're not going to go anywhere. So we've got to haul ass and try to catch them, because they're way ahead right now, as the standings show and so on. But they weren't, you know, 2 years ago. But they've done a great job, management, coaching, development, drafting. It's impressive.
Westward of that.
Kyle, when we got a chance to speak with Eric Carlson on Friday, he mentioned that the last 15 games or so, he was frustrated just because it's not the type of spot that he wants to be in, playing those types of games. He wants to be competing, you know, for a playoff spot. And he's talked about, since the day he was acquired, how badly he wants to win the cup. But he also talked about how much he and his family enjoy it here. Just how would you evaluate his place with the team going into next season?
I'll address the last thing first, which is, I think in all of the exit meetings, everybody says how much they enjoy it here, and I think that's a testament to the community and the people around the organization that make it a great place to be, and the players are treated exceptionally well. I start to, when I hear it, when the team has missed the playoffs now 3 years in a row. And so I start to get this inner anxiety and fear that when you aren't performing at a high level and people still say that, you're at the risk of complacency and stagnation setting in. That's not to say that we need to stop doing things that way on the outside. I think it's just we have to get back to increasing our level of expectation to get players to feel that way, if that makes sense. Eric, I think, is and will forever be a polarizing figure. When, I don't know his exact comments that he made, my view would be that we expect him to be one of the people that pulls us from where we're at and into contention. And so I would, and I had a long meeting with Eric on Friday, my push to him would be that his actions have to match his ambitions. That's in consistency, preparation, training, like every other player on the team. And I think he showed throughout the year that he has another level to him. Times playing for us, certainly playing for Sweden at the Four Nations face-off. He was a player that you would watch and say, this guy can help any team not only contend but probably win. But it's emblematic of the rest of the group as well. There was moments of great play with too many inconsistent, and we have to push him to get there. That's the expectation that's dictated by his talent level and impact he can make, and it's a joint venture. So yes, part of it is on the team, part of it is on Eric, and we have to find our way through.
Davey in the middle.
Carl, thanks for doing this. Do you anticipate making any changes to the coaching staff, and does public sentiment play any sort of a role in decisions like that?
Public sentiment, no. I think we have to do everything that's always best for the Pittsburgh Penguins, and some of those decisions, and we've made some of them in the previous couple years, I don't think the public would have overly supported Jake Gensel moving on or Marcus Pettersson, but we have to do what we think is best to bring. I think what the public wants is they want the team to contend to win championships, and that's what the expectation is here. When it comes to the whole staff at large, Dave, I go through the same process at the end of every season. I'm in the midst of it right now, where I meet with the heads of every department, and I meet with Sully at length tomorrow. And then from there, I form my opinion on how to proceed with every department. That's not just coaching; it's coaching, performance, medical, public relations. Though they're generally in a good spot, and others. But that's the method that I go through. And if we have any changes, then we'll have them obviously for everybody, to any of the staffs.
Matt on the right.
I have two questions. One, just to follow up. Will Mike Sullivan definitely be back, or are you saying that's still TBD after you kind of meet with him this week?
Yeah, Mike's under. I haven't had any postseason meetings yet with Sully, just with the way the season ended, Matt, with it being a holiday. And so meet with Sully tomorrow. Sully's under contract. I think he was very clear with his intentions last week and what he's expressed in our conversation. So I'll meet with Mike tomorrow and sort through everything. I think with a coach like with Sully, he's an elite level coach, as he's shown throughout his time here and as he showed for Team USA. So there's always the point that very few coaches who are in that realm often want to see a team through this, but he's been very open about this is what he wants to do. So we'll just continue to reaffirm that, and as long as he's on that side of it, then we'll roll with that. Your second question.
With some of the issues defensively this year, do you see that as, it's probably a combination, but how much of that is personnel that needs to be addressed this summer, and how much of it does come down to coaching? I know that you were kind of tied together there.
I think you probably answered it within your own question, which is it's probably a combination of both and everything, and I think it's an organizational matter that needs to be addressed. We have to improve the personnel on the back end, but defending is not just about the 6 guys or 7 guys that dress on defense every night. It's about the whole group buy-in, forecheck, backtrack of the forwards, covering for one another. The system that you use defensively, does it need to be adapted or not? Does that lead you to have to acquire different types of players? If you play man-to-man, you need a different type of man-on-man in your own zone. To me, you need different types of guys to execute that than if you're going to play the way Boston historically has, or different teams of that nature. Then you need more size, reach, more versus mobility, in my opinion. But I think that's a big discussion between Sully and I in terms of what does the personnel need to be for them to execute the system that he wants, and then measuring is that system the one that's going to get us back to where we want to be. So it's like everything with management and coaching. You can say however you want to phrase it, but it's a partnership.
Dan on the left.
With regards to Ricard Raquel and Brian Russ, both of them pretty strongly expressed a desire to stay. So I'm curious, as you make your summer decisions, how much their desire to stay factors into it, and what can you say about their future?
Yeah, I go back to the thing about everybody wants to stay, but my view of it is that they're both on and off the ice. They're probably as good as seasons they had, and both of them, I think, respectively, production-wise, were at their best. But I think in terms of what they contribute defensively, they're at their overall. They were both excellent for us the whole year. Their competitiveness, especially in Rusty's case, like he's been here his whole career. His daily commitment to being an elite Pittsburgh Penguin and setting an example. He also bridges the gap. One of the things we see here, especially when young guys come in, there's such a reverence for Sid, who's earned that reverence. So Rusty has to, he sets the example. I think that guys will also look to. And if you start to lose too many of those players, then you can get yourself into a bit of a quandary fast. And so both of them set great examples. Both of them are excellent players, people, members of the community. All of that said, we have to, we value them very highly. But if there are moves that are going to make our team significantly better in the short and long run, we'll look at anything with anybody. That's just where we're at.
Jason.
Kyle, thanks for doing this. You were talking about development and internal improvement. I was wondering externally your stuff. In a perfect world, if you could target specific areas on the top six, bottom six, left side, whatever it is, are there areas you see that maybe you're best addressed externally?
Well, right now, Jason, I think that we need to, the left side of our defense has it's been a problem. There's just no other way to put, especially moving Marcus out to Vancouver. I think it was the trade. I think will serve us a great purpose in the future, but it hurts the left side of the defense core now. So Owen Pickering is there, and he played for the team this year, but is he ready to step into one of those roles? I don't think so. We've got Ryan Shea, Ryan Graves, Vlad Kolyachonok on the roster. I think all of them have had opportunity. Vlad less so than the two Ryans. Ryan Shea, we continue to push to want him to take steps. And Gravy, I think it's been well documented. We talked about it last year. I think he was very open from what I had read and observed. That he knows he has to be a lot better. So all that said, you can't just wish that all of them are going to improve and all move up into 1, 2, 3 left side of the defense. So that's an area I think externally that we have to, and so that we'll be on the lookout for that as we go through here.
Justin.
Kyle, I'm wondering just what you made of Matt Grzelcyk's season, and if he's a guy that you see that you'd be willing to engage with this summer, and a guy that potentially could have a future out here with the organization.
Yeah, I mean, he goes back into I'm sure probably attached into the previous question. He's a UFA that did have a very good year for us. Stepped into a very difficult role, running the first power play over Eric and over Chris, which is a lot of pressure, and did a very good job, produced well. So I know what his intentions are. Awesome, zero maintenance person for us. Just comes, works, does his job, quietly, effective. I think the goal of the year for him, I don't know how much he got into it with you all in the room, but he wanted to use this to get to get everything back, on track with his, fell off last year in Boston. We felt we had an opportunity to give him, and I think it was a situation in free agency that really worked out on a 1-year deal for him to jump into the mix. And so we'll have conversations with him. We'll look and see what's available and how it fits our overall needs, and determine whether we can offer him that same opportunity again.
Will.
Kyle, you talked about not wanting to put a timeline on when the team gets back to, continue. What's your overall level of confidence, however, on whether this is, for lack of a better phrase, quote, rock bottom?
I think that everyone, I tend to find that term is used hastily after big moments or, after tough seasons. I truly think that you can't answer it until your years passed and you're able to look back and say, that was the point where we where we got there. I think if you had to, from my view, in the previous my 2 years here, I would actually think that the previous March more represented that than now, because I feel like now, last year in March we made that decision with Jake, and we moved him to Carolina, and we got the draft capital and prospects and Michael Bunting and such back. But I think the way that we played for that stretch in March, that to me felt much worse than anything this year. And I knew what I signed up for when I came in. It wasn't necessarily a surprise that, you know, in this job I'm going to be the one delivering that message when it's time to transition and go a different way from contending for nearly 2 decades. So that was part of this job when I took it, and I knew that, and I think that even now when I look today, maybe we had less points than we had last year, but I feel like we're slightly better positioned as we move ahead because of the younger players here. So I don't know, I don't think I can sit here and try to give you an exact answer, but in my mind, when I look back on the previous 2 years, I think the previous March more represented that than now, and we have our own younger players that have come up, performed well, and that's a little bit more, I'm more optimistic going into next year than I was just organizationally. It might, the results are going to be what they're going to be, but I feel we're closer to where we want to get back to now than last year.
Couple more, Kelsey, right?
With the announcement of the salary cap going up year by year, I'm just wondering how that might affect your approach to things like unrestricted free agency, and given the fact you said you might add players that you feel, you know, if they can help now and in the long term. So how might that affect your approach to the cap going up?
Yeah, thanks, Kelsey. I think that with the cap, I think the areas that you probably would see us spend more would be acquisition by trade, or and then signing players that other teams might not be able to fit. I think the effect in free agency is probably going to be somewhat of a spike in salary, and so you'll dry up the cap space rather quickly for us. And those players are mostly into that late 20, early 30 category. So it could do two things. Number one, I think it's going to allow us to maybe trade for players that other teams can't afford that are restricted free agents, and then sign them longer range ourselves, using that cap space that way. So you're signing a player that's 23, 24 for 7 or 8 years versus going into free agency for someone who's 27 to 32 and getting them for 7 years. So I think that would be the more likely route if you were to see us, you know, and the owners have been excellent. They're, you know, there's no limitations on the player budget and spending. So I just, you know, we need to use it in the right spot, not just say we were a cap team, but to use it towards getting us back to our goal. You know, the offer sheet stuff, I think teams will be better positioned this year to guard against them because of the cap going up. That I think everyone is excited because last year St. Louis used that function masterfully. So I think, given the flat cap and the situation that Edmonton was in, and that helped their franchise, I think for us it's probably going to have to be more via trade, would be my guess. And so that was the beginning of the strategy with acquiring all the draft capital we have. So, thank you.
Seth, in front of.
Okay, I'm just wondering if there's any injury updates you might be able to provide. You had a number of players unable to finish the season because of their health. Mike indicated last week there's probably no additional surgeries needed, but is there anything more you can say about some of the guys that were banged up at the end of the year?
No, I don't think so. Not any different than what was put out before the last game. Obviously, everyone knows Chris's situation. You know, so that thankfully went very well last week, and otherwise there's nobody that we expect to have any limitations heading back into training camp. I think just going through with Sully in the communications department last week. You know, I think you're aware of everything that's come across the desk so far. I think Emil Bemstrom is the only relatively new one. He's going to be out for Wilkes, and we'll need a surgery, and we'll be done. So.
2 more, Taylor.
To go back to public sentiment, fan sentiment, there is a common sentiment that Sully doesn't trust young players, might not be the guy to lead the team through this kind of rebuild. Just what's your take on that, and maybe what does give you confidence that he is the guy to go through this phase?
Well, I think that you know, I don't know that the team has had the and it's not a criticism anyway, because the team was literally in contention for 2 decades. When you're in that spot, you're trading draft picks, trading prospects to try to add the pieces to put the team over the top, and it's worked here. So I don't know that there have been I catch that from time to time. I don't know what, I think when you say that, what I often ask people is what young players have left here, gone elsewhere and skyrocketed after not getting an opportunity. They've traded young players who've played a lot here to try to add more guys to get them closer to winning. But I don't think that those players were of interest because they played a lot here, not because they didn't. So I think the young player stuff is a personnel department issue, which falls on me and management to fix more so than coaching. I think that's how I view that. And I would say that at the end of the season, we had 2 young players come up and they were put into very prominent roles without really holding them back. So that's more what I look at. I understand until the team is 21 and 22 years old at every position, plus Sid, and winning, that everyone's going to have their angst, but we'll do our best to get there.
Last one, Matt.
Speaking of Sidney Crosby, last week he talked about the toll of losing, not just the losses themselves, but seeing players get traded away and things like that.
Yeah.
When you met with him after the season, did you get the sense that he's still on board with the big picture plan that you have here? And do you feel urgency? We've talked about urgency a lot, but do you feel like you need to show like proof of concept soon to make sure that he remains on board if he's?
Yeah, the way that I would answer that is that Sid is going to want to win every single thing he does. He was on the ice here today, and he's in some competition with whoever he can get to go on the ice with him. He wants to win everything he does every single day that he does it. So until we are back contending to win the Stanley Cup, I expect him to be grumpy, and I expect him to express the toll that he explained to everybody in the room. That's who he is. That's what makes him able to perform the way he does at 37, 38, who knows for however many years. I'm not going to put a timeline on this. Talk about not putting timelines. That's one you probably never should, unless you really want to lose, because that's another competition for him. So I think that I don't know about showing proof of concept. I think we have to just execute the plan as we have been really since last March. When I took the job, it was the instruction was, let's see if we can jolt it one last time, and I needed the response that if we didn't get there, I'm going to have to take it in a different direction, because that's what I think we might need to do. The owners had full support. I knew that there was going to be a toll internally and externally on that. And everything that we do is, Matt, is to try to get those young players around him, because you see last night, you watch some of the games and you see teams that haven't played in the playoffs yet. And it's just in my experience from time in Toronto, we went through that same thing. If you have guys in the group that have won and have been a part of it, I think you can exponentially improve and expedite the team's return to contending. So I don't know if it's proof of concept. I think from my end, it's in trying to build something that can sustain itself for a long time. Getting those younger players that are going to be part of that core around Sid and him helping them helping him is really what the focus is. But it's not just Sid. It goes back to the question of Brian Rust, Carlson, Chris Letang, Gino, Ricard Raquel, all those others that are there. They can play a role in that as well. And I'm trying to do that for every one of them, because I think they're high quality people, they're high end players, they can help return us where we want to be. And the proof of concept is probably not going to come until the team is legitimately back in contention. I think every young player that comes up and plays well will get everybody excited, but that really for me isn't what it's about either. It's, can we continue to add more to it? We need more than 2 forwards to come up and give that feeling at the end of the year. We need, another wave of them to come. So.
Thanks, Kyle.